It's a speech by Dr. R. Ramanan from the Malayor Bhagavatamrita Sathram earlier this year, 2024.
Right. And our mission today is really to unpack his exploration of pure devotion, what he calls Shuddha Bhakti.
Yeah, and the source itself is pretty rich, isn't it? He covers quite a range.
Oh, definitely. You've got stories about Ganesha and Krishna, reflections on Bhakti itself, thoughts on different spiritual figures. It's quite a mix.
So our goal here is to, get to the heart of his ideas about Bhakti, figure out what its essence is, maybe see how it connects to, well, to your own life, hopefully sparking some of those aha moments along the way. Ready?
Let's do it. So Dr. Ramanan kicks things off by talking about his own history with Malayor, his reverence for the place. It sets a nice personal tone right away.
And then he points out something really unique there, doesn't he? This image of Ganesha and Krishna together.
Yes, these two mischievous, dark-skinned kids side by side. He really emphasizes how unusual and, well, insightful it is to bring these two specific deities together like that.
It's not a common pairing.
Not at all. And he suggests it points to a really deep spiritual understanding to conceive of them united in that way. It's quite profound.
And that leads him straight into a story, kind of related, about Ganesha clashing with Parashurama. This is from Valathal's work, Shishyana Makanam.
Right. Parashurama, feeling a bit entitled as Shiva's disciple, wants to barge in while Shiva's resting.
But Ganesha stops him, blocks the way.
Exactly. And Parashurama gets, well, arrogant about it. Ganesha, being young Ganesha, reacts. And Valathal's description, which Dr. Ramanan quotes, is incredible.
Yeah, he says when Parashurama cuts off Ganesha's tusk, it falls like a peak of Mount Kailasa, bloodied, causing this huge cosmic tremor. You really feel the weight of it.
But here's the crucial insight Dr. Ramanan draws out. Ganesha's main hurt wasn't the physical pain. It was the loss of vambu.
Vambu. Like pride.
Yeah.
Status.
Sort of, yeah. That public humiliation, losing face in front of others. It's about the ego, really. More painful sometimes than the actual injury.
He compares it to kids being more upset by a public scolding than the actual punishment, which makes total sense. And of course, this is how Ganesha gets the name Akadanta, the single-tusked one.
Mm-hmm. And then, understandably, Parvati, his mother, is furious. Dr. Ramanan paints this picture of her gaze being so intense that even Shiva was, wary of it.
She questions if Parashurama has given enough dakshina, like an offering or payment for what he did.
Things are tense. And then comes this twist that Dr. Ramanan highlights from Valathal's telling Radha and Krishna themselves appear from Goloka to soothe Ganesha.
Which is unusual, right? You don't normally find that meeting in the scriptures.
Exactly. Valathal uses it creatively to bring peace, showing this kind of interconnectedness in the divine world.
And this connects back for the speaker, Dr. Ramanan, to seeing that Ganesha and Krishna image in Malayor. He talks about the feeling it evokes.
Yeah, this maternal affection, this joy, seeing these two playful figures together. It's a very warm, relatable image. He finds the very conception of it deeply profound.
It suggests divinity can be both powerful and, well, really intimate, almost childlike.
Precisely. And all this serves as a lead-in to the topic he was actually asked to speak on, the beauty of pure devotion.
He mentions being a bit surprised, actually, after years of talks on spiritual practices, sadhana, and other things. Suddenly, bhakti.
Yeah, he hadn't focused specifically on bhakti before, despite all his spiritual talks. He almost feels like the topic itself was divinely guided,
Okay, so let's get into it. What is the essence of this pure devotion, this Shuddha Bhakti, according to him?
Well, he describes it as a state where you basically forget yourself. You go beyond your constructed identity, the roles you play, your sense of I.
And that's why sorrow disappears during devotion. Because the you that feels sorrow is kind of absent.
That's the idea. When you're totally absorbed, maybe in a temple, listening to a discourse during a Bhagavad Saptam, like he mentions, you lose track of your individual self and its problems.
He actually says the most joyous state is forgetting oneself.
Right. Because, he argues, the self, our ego, that sense of I, is the root of most of our difficulties. It's the thing we're all trying to get released from, in a way.
And he mentions other paths, Raja Yoga, Karma Yoga, Hatha Yoga. They're all aiming for that too, right? Getting beyond the individual ego.
Yes, different methods, same goal. But he positions Bhakti Yoga as, well, maybe the closest to the heart, the most influential, perhaps because it's so direct.
It communicates directly with the heart, he says. It bypasses all the intellectual stuff.
Exactly. It's fundamentally an emotion of the heart.
Okay, but what does that mean, emotion of the heart? How is the heart different from the intellect in his view?
Ah, this is key. He draws a sharp contrast. The heart, he says, is non-dualistic. It doesn't operate in terms of right, wrong, good, bad. It just is. It has this straightforwardness.
Like a child's reaction, just pure feeling, no analysis.
Kind of like that, yes. Whereas the intellect is all about distinctions, judgments, categories, dualities, good, bad, right, wrong, ustum.
So bhakti, being from the heart, naturally transcends all that intellectual division.
Precisely. It operates on a different frequency, you might say. It bypasses the need for analysis and connects directly to experience, to unity.
And he uses love pranaya as an analogy here, doesn't he?
He does. He says love is similar. When you're truly in love, those external judgments, status, looks, whatever, they tend to fade away.
Right. He tells that story from his clinic. Parents wanting to break up a couple based on intellectual reasons like status or background, even though the couple was deeply in love.
Yeah, it's that classic conflict. The heart sees connection, the intellect sees incompatibility based on external factors.
He even brings up Layla and Majnu. Their beauty only existed for each other, completely different from how society saw them.
The parents think with the intellect, the lovers with the heart. He rarely notes this often changes after marriage, when the intellect kicks back in.
Yeah, he mentioned that saying about marriage being the end of a 12-year romance. A bit cynical maybe, but it makes the point.
It does. The point is that pranaya, this deep love, like bhakti, comes from the heart and operates beyond those intellectual categories of right and wrong.
Okay, so if pranaya is similar, how does he formally define bhakti?
He goes to the Narada Bhakti Sutra. Bhakti is parama brahmarupa. It's that supreme love directed toward the Paramatma, the supreme soul, the ultimate reality.
And he talks about kama, desire, being something innate in all beings.
Yes, but humans, he says, have this unique capacity. We can transform that raw desire, kama, into pranaya, into love, and then potentially elevate that into bhakti, into supreme devotion.
Like coal turning into a diamond, with focus and practice.
That's the analogy he uses. And he gives the example of the Vraja gopis and their Sukha-Sukitvam.
Sukha-Sukitvam, meaning?
Their happiness completely depends on Krishna's happiness. His joy is their joy. It's utterly selfless love. Their focus is entirely on the Sukhi, the blissful one, who is Krishna.
Which he then contrasts sharply with what often passes for love today.
Right. He points out how sometimes love is used as a cover for manipulation, forced conversion, business deals, even revenge. Very different motivations.
True pranaya, true bhakti, he suggests, is rare, seen mainly in divine contexts or among highly evolved souls like the gopis. Their focus on Krishna was absolute.
So absolute, they disregarded everything else, even their husbands. He brings up Akka Mahadevi's quote here.
The one about putting dying worthless husbands in the hearth, it's incredibly blunt.
It is. And he knows it's politically incorrect, but it shows the sheer intensity of prioritizing the divine connection above all societal expectations. It's a powerful statement of devotion.
He also makes an observation about who attends spiritual discourses like the Bhagavat Saptaham.
Yeah, he notices more women attend and suggests it might be because men get more caught up in worldly things, politics, business, that kind of stuff.
And he offers that interesting perspective.
Yeah.
Women as prakriti, nature having a more natural draw to the divine essence, while men, linked to buddhi, intellect, can get sidetracked by the world.
The heart's nature is joy. Anandam, hence Hridyanandam, joy of the heart. He thinks women often connect more readily to that core essence, the Atma Tattva.
It reminds him of something Osho said about women mystics.
Right. Osho apparently felt that women who attain enlightenment often just absorb it quietly, live it, whereas men might feel more need to announce it, to teach, to publicize.
Interesting thought, implying there might be many unknown female mystics who connect through the heart and don't seek recognition.
That's the idea. But then Dr. Ramanand does highlight some very strong recognized female voices. Mirabai, Akka Mahadevi, Kari Kalama, Laleshwari Andal. Their voices were powerful, he says, but non-harming. They're revered.
And he focuses particularly on Akka Mahadevi's story. Born in 12th century Karnataka, forced marriage.
Despite her beauty and the marriage to King Kaushika, her heart was totally set on Arjuna, on Shiva. She even set conditions for the marriage.
Uninterrupted worship, seeing devotees, and no intimacy without her consent, right? 3 chances.
Exactly. She declared up front she was already Arjuna's wife, which leads to that provocative quote from Maharshi Aurobindo.
To do adultery with God is the perfect experience. Wow. How does he explain that?
He frames it in the context of devotees, especially women perhaps, facing opposition from family or society. Their devotion becomes this secret, passionate connection, almost like a hidden affair because it goes against the grain.
I see. It's about that intense private bond when the world doesn't understand or approve.
Yes. And with Akka, her devotion continues, and eventually the king tries to force himself on her for the third time.
And she disrobes completely in the palace, declaring her true husband is Shiva, the Digambara, the sky-clad one.
A radical act of renunciation. She leaves everything, wanders, lives on alms, completely devoted, seeing Channamallikarjuna as her constant companion. She even rejects worldly advances later on.
He connects her nudity to states where the ego dissolves, like madness or death, and the naked sannyasas at Kumbhela. It's about shedding the ego, not just clothes.
Right. And he draws a parallel with Mirabai leaving her palace life to sing bhajans for Krishna.
He also briefly touches on the Rasa Leela, Krishna being with all gopis at once, and the question people raise about Radha not being with Krishna during his later life.
His point there is basically, don't try to apply limited human logic to these divine unions. Radha Krishna, Sita Rama, their connection is eternal in the heart. Radha represents all the gopis' devotion.
And he mentions the gopis leaving their homes at night for Krishna.
Driven by this overwhelming divine pull. And again, he brings back Akka's fierce line about husbands who don't share that divine focus.
But then he offers a more constructive vision, doesn't he?
Yes. He suggests husbands should strive to be that embodiment of the Supreme Soul. And he talks about the Indian ideal of the Dharmapatni, the wife, as a powerful spiritual partner rooted in bhakti, going beyond just family duties.
So these stories really illustrate the power and intensity of bhakti. But what about the underlying principle? He moves to surrender, right?
Yes, unconditional surrender. And he makes a crucial distinction. It's not vishwasam, which he translates roughly as blind faith or maybe intellectual belief,
Okay.
but samarpanam, which is complete surrender. It's acting from that belief,
Yeah.
trusting it utterly, handing yourself over.
He tells that story about the Harakatha singer and the women crossing the river to make this point.
Exactly. The women couldn't cross the flooded river. The singer jokes, just walk across chanting Hare Rama or Krishna.
And they just do it.
They do. Their faith, their samarpanam, was so complete they walked on water. But when the singer himself, full of doubt, tried it.
He sank because he had the words, maybe the Vishwasam, but not the total surrender, the Samarpanam.
Precisely. Then there's the story of the bar next to the church.
Right. The church folks pray against the bar, the wall collapses, and the bar owner sues the church.
And the church members deny their prayers could possibly have done it. It's ironic the non-believing bar owner had more faith in the power of their prayers than they did themselves.
It shows a lack of real conviction, maybe. A gap between ritual and true belief.
Seems to be the point. He follows up with Yuri Gagarin.
Oh yeah, the first man in space. Both the bishop and Stalin apparently asked him if he saw God and told him to say, no one to protect religion, the other to protect communism.
Again, it suggests the non-believers, in a way, had a stronger belief in the potential impact of seeing God than the believers did. It's about the depth of conviction.
So true bhakti, true samarpanam is this unwavering faith, like seeing the ultimate reality even in a buffalo, as a Gorachathan did.
Yes, it's inherently pure, eternally pure. And he comes back to this idea that its most beautiful form often appears in the hearts of women.
But he clarifies that women here signifies the receptive soul, right? Because the divine, Bhagavan, is the only true Purusha, the enjoyer, the active principle.
Exactly. He uses Mirabai's challenge to the priest who denied her entry because she was a woman. She asked him how he could claim to be Purusha when worshipping the ultimate Purusha.
That's a powerful challenge to ego and societal roles based on gender.
It ties into Shaivism and Tantra, this concept of Purusha Ajnana, the ignorance of thinking your limited individual self is the true Purusha. We're all caught in that ignorance when we identify with our ego.
So the goal of bhakti is to dissolve that limited sense of self, to realize the bigger I.
That's it. Bhakti is the path from the analyzing intellect back to the accepting heart, expanding the heart's capacity. He talks about the blindness of love, compassion, bhakti.
Meaning the heart sees differently, not with physical eyes, but with feeling.
Yes. We even feel emotions physically in our chest, our heart area. Bhakti is primarily an activity of the heart.
Unlike the intellect, which dissects and judges.
Right. The heart accepts, embraces without division. He mentions Jesus' teaching against judgment. The heart is like a mother's love, nurturing, compassionate.
And in Shaivism, Hridaya actually means Shiva. The heart is the center, the point of balance, like Arjuna's chariot between the armies in the Gita.
Which brings him to his final story, Avayar and Muruga.
a famous figure in Tamil Bhakti. He uses her story to emphasize Bhakti's ancient roots and its role in unity, right? Countering the idea it was just a medieval thing.
Yes, he stresses Bhakti as the path of the heart, embraced by figures like Narayana Guru, fostering unity, rejecting discrimination, underpinning social reform.
He even shares Narayana Guru's own devotional verses, marveling at Muruga's grace despite his own perceived flaws, finding connection in their shared status as beggars in a spiritual sense.
It highlights that intimate, sometimes even informal Idapoda relationship Bhakti allows with the divine.
Okay, so the story itself. Muruga asks Avayar what's the biggest thing in the world.
And she goes through, answers the universe, Brahma. Muruga keeps finding something bigger. Brahma is on Vishnu's navel lotus, Vishnu is in the ocean, Agastya drank the ocean.
It's this chain of logic. Agastya born from a pot, the pot is earth, earth is on Sishanaga, the serpent.
Sishanaga is Parvati's ring, Parvati is with Shiva. Where does it end?
Shiva resides in the devotee's heart.
Exactly. Therefore, Avaya concludes the devotee's heart is the biggest thing in the world because it can contain the infinite.
Wow, so bhakti is the way to expand your heart, to make space for the divine within you.
That's the ultimate point. And he concludes quite simply, bhakti is indeed the most excellent path.
So, wrapping this up, after diving into Dr. Ramanan's speech, the real core takeaway seems to be that bhakti, this pure devotion, it's all about connection. A deep, personal, heart-level connection with the divine.
Yeah, it's something that kind of goes beyond just thinking about it, beyond intellectual limits, beyond what society dictates sometimes. It's about experience, about feeling.
We've definitely heard about its power, how it can bring joy, help you move past sorrow, and how it's shown up so powerfully in the lives of these devotees he talked about.
Absolutely. It's a path of transformation, really. Expanding the heart, like in a Avayar story.
Which leads us to a final thought for you, the listener. Maybe take a moment to consider your own heart space. How connected do you feel to it?
Right. And what might happen if you tried to cultivate that connection more?